And let me begin with a roll call of the members of the committee. Andrea Solomon.
Here.
Jerry Susi.
Here.
Leo Carroll. He's absent. Brian Davidson.
Here.
So, and Paul Cook, where all the members are here. And I also want to welcome Susan Bates, who is our liaison to the select board. And of course, Tish Hopkins, who makes sure that everything runs properly on the grounds of the cemetery. Aaron Miklosko is here, our superintendent. And we have a guest, Lydia Lodinsky, and Richard Nowick. I don't know Richard. So let's get underway. I'm supposed to read the following. In accordance with Governor Baker's executive order permitting virtual meetings during the COVID pandemic, the Cemetery Committee is conducting this public meeting today, September 2nd, 2020 at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Zoom platform in accordance with the town's policy directive and guidelines issued on April 1st, 2020 and amended on May 7th. This meeting has been properly noticed with the town clerk. I ask that all Cemetery Committee members, town staff, and presenters activate their video and mute their microphone unless they have something to say or are participating in committee dialogue. For members of the public, when I open the meeting to public comment, please unmute yourself or raise your hand by hitting star 9 on your phone or select raise your hand option by your name in the list of participants. If you're recognized, please state your name and address. This meeting is being recorded and will be available for later viewing on the town's website. I hereby call this meeting to order. All right. So I have in front of me our agenda for the month of September for our cemetery meeting. The meeting is being recorded. Andrea, I trust that you will be able to sign whatever documents Tish has for you at some point along the way.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
I'll call you.
Okay. And I will take a look at the agenda in a second, but the next thing is the next proposed cemetery committee meeting, which I presume will be held as this one is using Zoom. The date is October 7th. Does that work for everybody?
Yes.
Okay, so October 7th it is. Now we move on to D1. The first thing, and that's chair comments. I have something I wrote up. First, I want to thank Aaron Miklosko for setting the virtual cemetery committee meeting up, and for Anna Trout, who is initiating the Zoom call and acting as our host. I also want to thank all the committee members and Tish Hopkins for being here and for our guests. We will see in today's meeting that in the 3 priority areas that the cemetery committee identified last year, which we wish to see significant progress in, that we actually have made some significant progress here in September, 9 months, eight months and a few days into the year, in spite of everything. First, after nearly 6 years of work on arranging and setting up the selling of mausoleum plots, I want to report that we're almost there. And that there's a great possibility that we may be able to put these plots up for sale before the year ends. So that's a I'm very gratified and happy about that. Second, in the area of gravestone preservation and restoration, really great progress has been made and all the goals for this year have been met, as Aaron Miklosko will show us in a few minutes. And finally, in the priority area of making all the cemetery records more secure by scanning them, because right now they're all just on paper records that Tish has been keeping for years, and those who came before her were keeping them for years on paper. We don't really have, though they're in a strong box, we don't really have them in an electronic form, and we want to get that done. That's been one of our priorities, and we are about to launch. We're just about ready to get a vendor and turn to getting that underway. So there's been significant progress in these areas. Now, around 2 years ago, the committee put together a new master plan in a project that was led by the former committee member Whitney Kocher Nguyen and our current vice chair, Andrea Solomon. They put this master plan together. The committee approved it. and it's now our master plan. It serves as a very helpful guide for identifying new priorities. And since we've made so much progress on the 3 that we set up last year, I think now would be a good time, that is when we meet on October 7th, to discuss priorities for the year 2021. And that will also be a helpful time because Aaron McCloskey will be talking about, or will be working on putting together a budget for the fiscal year 2022, and what priorities we come up with may be influencing the sorts of budgetary decisions that we make and that Aaron makes. So why don't we all plan on having a look at the master plan, which is available online. I think Anna had something to do with helping put that up for next time, for October. So we'll have a look and we'll have a discussion about what our priorities for 2021 should be. And so now, without any further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Aaron McCloskey and give us our report on the maintenance and the upkeep of the cemetery and the budget. Aaron, take it away.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you to the rest of the committee for joining us this evening, and to all the guests who've logged in virtually. So, quick updates. I will be covering the 3 priority project items under a little bit later on during the meeting under item D6, so I will skip those for right now. But as far as operations and maintenance goes, in the cemetery, it continues on in the summer. Obviously, we've had to kind of we've had the COVID situation, which has limited our staffing throughout the Highway and Grounds division, but Tish has done a great job on stepping up and still maintaining the cemetery to the level of everybody's expectations. So kudos to Tish and the rest of the Highway and Grounds crew that supports her up there. We are still utilizing our contracted labor force through Einstein's. They are reporting to the cemetery regularly under Tish's direction to maintain specific areas of the cemetery. We have implemented a new checklist this season, that inspection checklist, which is reviewed, areas are inspected and reviewed and signed off on by Tish. Any areas that don't meet a level standard, we bring the contractor back to meet those. And we haven't had any issues over the last couple of months since we last met. So that's been really good. We have sent out a new advertisement, invitation for bid. It's posted on the state website as well as our town website. And legal notice went out in the newspaper for the next cemetery landscaping contract invitation for bid. That is due later this month. The detailed bid specs are posted through Project Dog, which is a bidding website that allows us to track the bidders electronically and compile any questions and answers that any bidders may have. We did have a pre-bid walkthrough at the cemetery earlier this week, where we had 2 bidders attend the walkthrough. It was a non-mandatory pre-bid walkthrough. So those 2 contractors are in attendance, met with Tish and Eric Shaw, and inspected the cemetery. And we instructed them to submit any questions in writing through the Project Dog website, and we'll be answering those through that website as is stated in the bid advertisement. So that is out, and we're expected to have bids back later this month, and hopefully award a new contract in early October. As far as funeral operations go, for the last couple of months, it's been 2 months since we've met. We have had, during the month of July and August, 6 full burials and 18 cremations took place, and 20 single grave lots and 1 cremation lot were sold over the last couple of months. So it's still been busy up there. We're still seeing visitors to the cemetery, even though I think tourism is down throughout town. I think there's still visitors that are still coming through. You see plates from all over the country driving through. So it's still a iconic spot, and we welcome the visitors and tourists to the cemetery. As far as issues go, really relatively no complaints or significant events to inform the committee about. It's been business as usual, if you will, up at the cemetery. So that's been very good. And for the most part, that's really all I have to cover under operations maintenance. I don't know if there's anything that Tish would like to address.
No.
Okay.
No, that's good.
I wanted to kick around a couple of subjects to do with the budget, which I've talked to Aaron about earlier. and this is something that I know that Brian has showed interest about too. Presently, all funds come from two sources, as I understand it. There's the general fund, from which 30% of all cemetery expenses are paid. That includes salaries and so on. And then there's the cemetery fund. That's 70% of all the funds spent on the cemetery come from the cemetery fund. That means all capital projects, such as what we're doing with the gravestone restorations and so on. So my question, Aaron, and this is for the committee to consider too, is there a strategic reason to modify the 30-70 allocation? That is, right now, 30% of our income comes from the general fund, whereas most of it comes from the cemetery fund. And I think, I'm not positive, I think you may have had a look at it, Aaron, since we last talked. If we're drawing down the cemetery fund, from which 70% of our income comes, too quickly, we may run out sooner than we want to. We don't want to run out. I don't know how much income is coming into the cemetery fund in terms of plots sold, though I do think that if we sell a couple of mausoleum plots, our problems will be over. But that hasn't happened yet. So should we consider finding out if we could change, or if we need to change the allocations from 30-70 to something different?
So I at this time, I don't feel it's necessary. So I did pull the current Fund 16, which is the cemetery fund balance. And as of June 30th, 2020, the current balance was $531,919.47. That was at the end of FY20. And it has actually increased since last year's FY19 ending balance of $476,000.62. So right now, revenues from the cemetery fund, they come from interment fees, from lot sales, and from interest earned on the perpetual care fund. So currently, as we're not drawing down significant amounts of capital funds for, let's say, the road reconstruction project or the drainage project that happened a few years back, we're seeing increase in funding in the cemetery fund. So at this time, I don't feel it would be necessary to change the allocation of that 30 to 30-70 rough split between general fund and cemetery fund. Also, if we were to increase or change that ratio at all, it would need to make sure it aligns with the town manager's recommended budget guidelines that, you know, I'm sure will be issued here very soon for the FY22 budget preparation.
Okay, that's reassuring that that actually the cemetery fund is growing. Do any of the committee members have any questions for our superintendent about the budget or about anything else in his report?
Well, I guess I would just say, you know, maybe we could have some more conversations about it, and maybe if you don't mind, just submit some questions that we can address next meeting. But, you know, so for one example, you know, on the books has been this $40,000 capital improvements that we really haven't been drawing down for on the last several years for, you know, for whatever reason. I think, you know, we had allocated 10,000 to the headstone repair and 30,000 to general capital appreciation. So I just, you know, when we talk about the numbers, maybe if, you know, if we could just maybe submit, and Aaron, I don't know if you're okay with that, if we could just submit maybe some questions like when we look at the budget.
Absolutely.
And yeah, just so, you know, I don't want to just, it'll probably be a better conversation if we can think about it and submit questions rather than, you know, asking you questions on the spot where I'm sure you have the information, but it might just be hard just to pull it right from there.
Yeah.
And the only other thing I would just say is that I was looking at the budget that we're submitting, and it's still in the notes, still says 65, 35, you know, so I just, you know, I mean, I think, you know, it's important that, you know, since we are submitting that to the town people to vote on, that, you know, that we make sure that those notes reflect the accurate information, which the budget really is 30-70. So those would be my only two comments at this time.
Right. I will follow up on the notes and make sure that that is addressed. And then just to address the comment about the funding not being spent. So we don't lose the money. Let's say the cemetery does not lose the money because the capital funding that is allocated for headstone restoration and other priority project improvements, That money comes from the cemetery fund, and if it's not expended at the end of the fiscal year, it returns to the cemetery fund.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just saying that, but the numbers we're talking about, we're saying, well, that budget's increased, in fact, right? I think you said it's gone from, the high 400s to the low 500s, but I'm just saying that that's true, but we also haven't used the capital that has been technically allocated. And so that number maybe, I don't know, not looking at all the numbers, but maybe skewed a little bit up because we haven't used it in, say, like 2019. I don't think that amount of money was actually used to improve, say, like the headstone stuff. So I just want to just make that to the committee that, yes, that's great, those numbers are going up, but that there is also other pieces of information that may be reflected in that amount going up.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, that does affect it greatly if we don't spend the capital money, because I did pull the 5 years worth of data, and you can see, previous year, FY18, the balance was $358,332.03. But the year before was slightly higher at $362,780. And I think that between those years, there was money that was allocated for larger construction projects within the cemetery that drew that funding balance down. And then it kind of came back up when we didn't do any larger projects. So you're entirely right. If the money isn't being spent, it'll continue to kind of go back to that pot, and it does increase it.
And we do want to, I spoke with Aaron about this earlier, when we're planning on beefing up the amount of money that goes to the headstone restoration project, since we have, you're right about this, Brian, in several years before, we didn't do anything. Even though we'd already voted to put 10 grand a year aside for the headstone restoration project, for at least 2 years, nothing was done. May even been 3. So this year we did get something done. And I think we want to, as soon as the budget allows, to double the money that we're, but also some of that 40,000 that you mentioned, Brian, is now going to go towards the scanning project, which is just about to begin once we find a vendor. But how about if I put, we plan to put one of our agenda items for next time, a budget discussion, and those questions that you have, Brian, or anyone else has, we can set aside a special time to deal with that.
That'd be great. I think that really just would help us, as you're saying, Paul, when we're doing our planning for the next year and what our priorities are. I mean, it's all the town's money, right? So it's not, it's not a huge deal. It's just which silo kind of does it sit in, and we just want to be good stewards of our silo and just make sure that when we're doing our plans that we're doing so in a conscious way.
It's good to have an accountant on the committee.
Definitely, and
thank you very much. It's appreciated. Your concerns about these things are very much appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely, and I do think that I think that we've had across the department and across the town, the whole COVID-19 situation has really limited our staffing power, and some restrictions have been implemented. And I feel that if we didn't have those, I think we would have made much more progress on the scanning project and spent down a lot more of that money. And then even so, the headstone restoration, we exceeded the $10,000 for last year's headstone restoration. It was $12,600. So that $2,600, came out of the rest of the remaining capital. So, and I now that also too, we have a better handle on capital projects and understand the committee's priorities clearly, and I think have a solid plan for moving forward to make sure we stay ahead of the capital projects and spend the money down. I know Tish has already spent quite a bit of time with the cemetery identifying our next round of headstones, so we're ready to go for the next round once we get an approved budget.
That's good. That's good.
If I could just say about operations, I just, it's the cemetery has been getting a lot of heavy use, and I was there late Sunday night and, really discouraged. There was a lot of bottles, beer bottles here and water bottles, paper bags, so much so that I grabbed a trash bag and went back at lunchtime. And I just want to say, when I went back, there was not a single piece of trash anywhere in that cemetery. It was amazing that our staff had done such a great job. I'm sure that's probably just an average Monday morning for them, but just really want to recognize, the efforts during the COVID-19 about what a great job they're doing keeping the operations and maintenance of the cemetery. It was really nice to see, and apologize on behalf of the town that we get it so messy, but appreciate your hard work towards it.
Thanks, Brian.
Tisha, has it been unusually messy since the thing started?
No.
No? Because I
No.
remember the cemetery is one of these places you can walk that's fairly open. And so it's attracted a lot of people who normally might not have come there.
Yeah.
And so the increased traffic may increase the amount of litter.
Not really,
Okay.
but we definitely have some people in there walking and riding their bikes that are new. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We've been there before, haven't we?
Yeah.
All right. Any other comments before we move on to D2? D3. All right. Lot repurchase, Town of Concord, Cahoon.
So this was a lot repurchase, excuse me. This was a lot repurchase, and I will let Tish, she has the documents, and go through the details.
This is, let's see. I don't have my stuff in order. It's a pretty basic two-grave lot that was purchased by the Cahoon family. And they don't intend to use it. Let's see. So just want to sell it back to the town for their purchase price.
Any questions about the matter, or is there more to be said? I move that
It's
we
pretty-
approve.
There's no issues with it. There's no trees in it. There's no one, they just want to sell it back.
That's standard procedure. I think there's no reason why, and so I would like to move that we approve it.
I second.
So Paul nominates, who seconded?
Andrea.
Andrea seconded. Okay, so there we go. All in favor? Let me call the roll. Here we go. Andrea,
Yes. I vote
Jerry,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Paul, yay. And Leo's absent. It passes. Very good. D4, additional internment request, Soberg.
So this is a lot in the old urn garden, Sleepy Hollow Urn Garden. It's a lot that's intended or was intended at the sale time for up to 4 interments of cremated remains. And the family purchased it with the intention of interring 4 people in it. They had a sudden death and interred a person in that lot that they had not intended to use it for. But they'd still like for the other 2 people to be able to be interred there at some point. So it would be 5 interments in an urn garden lot where we typically only allow 4. Would not be the first time this was done. This has been approved in the past, twice that I'm sure of.
Yeah.
They would have to replace the headstone. The headstone that's there is not adequate for 5 names, so they do have to replace the stone, but other than that, there's really no issue.
And they would pay an additional internment fee, correct?
Yes, yep.
Comments, questions? Do we have a motion to go ahead and accept this request?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we accept their request by the Sobergs for an additional interment.
Jerry Susi makes a motion to approve the request. Do we have someone to second?
Second?
That was Brian Davidson seconds it. All in favor? Brian?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Jerry?
Aye.
Paul? Aye. It's unanimous. It is approved. D5, non-conforming headstone request, Canava.
So this headstone, this was included in your packet, page 3 and 4 of the packet. If you remember at the last meeting that we had, Canava had submitted, Tish Canava had submitted another request for a separate headstone. That non-conforming headstone, that request was declined by the committee. This is a new request, a new stone. It is a combination of a headstone and a bench. And while it does meet some height and length requirements for each individually, a headstone or a bench, it is a combination. And where it is a unique type of stone, and there is some coloring that will be on the stone. There's a rainbow and two suns. After discussions, Tish and I felt it would be appropriate to bring this before the committee to let the committee determine whether or not that they felt it was an appropriate installation for the cemetery.
Tish, anything
And I
you'd like to
believe-
add? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Tish, I was just gonna, Tish, there is another similar type of stone already located in the cemetery. Can you talk a
There
little
is a
bit
similar stone that if you look at the drawing that was included in the packet, there's a stone very similar where it has the bench and then what we call a die, the larger piece on the left that looks more like a headstone attached kind of to the base as well. We didn't necessarily know we were getting that stone when we got it, and it was decided to let it stay. And it's been there for a number of years. So it's very similar in shape to the one that exists.
So Tish, a question.
Yes.
The drawing we have, the stone looks perpendicular. I mean, the face of the stone looks perpendicular to the bench.
Yes,
Is it a side? Is this? Are we looking at this? Are we looking at a side view here?
that's the front of the stone. What you're looking at is the front of the stone. The bottom, I guess, long rectangle is the base. It's a granite base.
Yeah.
And then there's the bench piece where really only one person could probably sit.
Uh-huh.
And then on the left is like a piece of granite also attached to the base.
All right. With all this design and writing on it.
Yes, it's a black, all black granite, and the rainbow and the two suns would be in full color.
Uh-huh. So there'd be two yellow suns, a sort of rising sun from the corner and then a full sun in the middle.
Yes,
And then you've got all these rainbows, like different colors
yes,
around the sun.
yes.
And it says Tish Kanava, 1951. So I presume Tish Kanava is still alive.
Yes, she's making the request.
Comments and questions from cemetery committee members.
I just have a question for Tish. Is it similar also in dimensions and in overall size to the one that's already there? Is it substantially bigger or?
It's probably a little smaller, but this is on a 2-grave lot and that one's on a 4-grave lot. The one that's there is on a larger lot.
Okay, thank you.
So on a large lot, you're permitted a larger stone.
Yes,
and so the requirements for, so a 2-grave lot for an upright monument, the maximum dimensions is 3'6" by 1'6" by 3'6" high. So 3'6" wide by 1 foot 6 inches deep by 3 foot 6 inches high. And for a bench, it is 4 feet long, wide, 1 foot 6 inches deep, and 2 feet high.
So it seems like in every respect, it's within the specs.
Correct.
So I suppose the only thing controversial might be the colorful inscriptions or designs on the headstone.
That's correct.
Thoughts, comments, questions by members of the committee?
I guess I just asked, I mean, I think we have kind of the rules for our sizing. Is there any rules against coloring? And or in the past, have we ever denied people because of the design or the coloring on their stones?
not to my knowledge. We've just had, so This, again, this stone would be difficult for us to move, which the one that exists will be difficult to move if we ever need to. Hopefully we don't. But we have had a couple of stones, not just in our cemetery, but in St. Bernard's as well, that have caused issues just because of the way they look. So this isn't a monument application I was comfortable with signing without having the committee's approval. Because if there's any controversy, I don't want to be the one that signed it.
All right. So Tish, what kind of controversy are you imagining?
There was this, well, the stone in Sleepy Hollow had the word hell on it. It was right when I first started. That caused quite an issue around town and with the town administration. The town actually tried to force the family to remove it, and they lost. And there was a stone put in at St. Bernard's also long ago that most people thought was quite ostentatious. They didn't like the look of it, and it was an issue even for us.
So what was ostentatious about the sign in, about the stone in St. Bernard's?
There's a Rolls Royce on it and it's gold.
Right, right. Well, I don't know if this doesn't seem to measure up to that. I think I've seen that Rolls Royce.
I'm sure you have. If you've ever walked through, I'm sure you have.
And of course, we all know about the famous headstone that has the word hell in it. That's a tourist attraction. It rivals the Thoreau stone in terms of tourist interest.
It does.
Which just shows how interesting human beings are. But do you think this would come up to either of those two examples of controversy?
I don't know.
Yeah, and this is more of like a different, unique type of stone, like I guess a one-off that we would see in the cemetery. So that's why we felt it would be appropriate to bring before the committee, and so you folks might want to have some comment on it before it gets approved. Yeah.
This is why it's a lot of fun to be on the cemetery committee, because these kinds of interesting things are, there's no rule. Everything so far is as they say, it's quite kosher, but except it is a little bit colorful.
I would like to just say, I mean, it is kind of, we have this black and white kind of drawer up. I mean, it is kind of hard to really get a full appreciation for maybe how different this is. Is it possible to, have the person submit, obviously it won't be this stone, but a similar type stone that the stonemason has done in the past, or?
Yeah, I'm not sure if we'd be able to ask them for that. Maybe a color rendering, if anything.
I think a color rendering of this would be easier to get a feel for what it would look like than something else that they've done.
I wasn't sure. Sometimes, you see them standard or something like that, but this sounds
no way standard, no. No.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at black and white, and I can kind of see the words of what the colors will be, but it's kind of hard to really get a true appreciation. I know in their first application they had at least a picture of kind of what that bench would look like. It was a little bit easier maybe to kind of comprehend or understand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if you look at that stone too, it says that section is what 18 inches wide, so it's really not that large of a. I don't know if the photo is really proportional. It's really not that large of a, either not proportional or that number is not right that's on it. So, it's I guess it's pretty close to being right. Just less than half, but I mean, it's a relatively small.
It is.
It's a relatively small rainbow.
Yeah, I mean, it's 18 inches. The whole thing is 18 inches across, and that's only a portion of it. So you'd have these interesting half circles of different colors, like a rainbow. I think Brian's request of a full color rendering is not a bad one at all. I think it would be helpful to see. I think you can imagine, because each one is labeled, it's going to be colorful, no way around it. Though the stone itself is dark, is that correct?
Black.
Black.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting, usually don't see a rainbow on a black background.
If I can say, this simple schematic is pretty consistent with some of the work that I do. I do some animation, and Yeah, I could knock off a rendition of this pretty quickly. If that would be helpful, I'd offer to do that.
Sounds like a good idea.
Okay.
Though maybe they have, are they talking about basic yellow, basic green, basic blue, or do they have shades, different shades in mind? Who knows? But Jerry, if you could, I don't know, we're going to have to wait till next month. I don't think you can do it right now. So
Okay.
one way or the other, if we do want to delay. Andrea, have you any thoughts on this?
I was wondering where the headstone is going to be. You probably said, but I missed it.
I didn't say it. It's if you were going around the circle with my office on your right, walking around the circle, it's just a little bit past my office and in about 4 rows.
Okay. And then is there anything about the design itself, like not thinking about the colors, but just the design of the bench combo? And you said we have one other one. Is there any other reason that might be a problem?
It's difficult to move. If we do have to move it, it's going to be difficult to move. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, other than, yeah, it technically meets the specifications of the monument size limitations.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how we would move it.
It just typically you would either have a bench or a headstone, and where this is a combination stone. Hopefully we don't have to move it.
Yeah, Tish, why would we need to move it?
To dig a grave behind or in front of it.
What are your, Tish, have you got a particular, what do you think?
I don't get to vote.
I know, but you can render an opinion if you'd like.
Well, anything that's going to be difficult for us to move, I wouldn't want to put there.
So, okay, that says something. Aaron, what do you think?
I like the design. I think it's unique. I don't personally have a problem with it. Obviously, it might pose some difficulties if we were to have to move it at some point, but I don't know if there's a way for us to figure out how to move it and move it safely. We can move anything. We just don't want to damage anything while we move it.
Right, right.
So is that we would want to make sure that we take every precaution possible. But that being said, I don't have a problem with it as it stands.
Is there a way of making the owner of the headstone responsible for moving it if it's necessary? Financially speaking?
I mean, they do pay perpetual care.
Okay.
So, it's tough to, yeah.
Okay.
So, maybe, I don't know if we were to look at it, the stone, the monument company, and talk with them about how we would move it if it needed to be moved at some point, and consider that.
That might be a good just reminder or warning for the plot owner to know that this could be a difficult stone to move. It could be damaged if we had to move it. I mean, maybe they would want to think about that.
I can talk to the monument company again and ask him for the color drawing as well as his recommendations. But I mean, he's going to set it.
Yeah.
Well, it seems
He'll have a way to move it.
there's enough reservation about this. There's no immediate need. Thankfully, the person involved is alive and well, so we don't need to make a decision today. I would like to suggest we put it off for a month. Let Tish rescue Jerry from the need of having to make this, and ask Tish to ask this lady to provide us with a full color rendition of the plan so that we can consider it more carefully. And also let her know that a concern of the committee is that if it may be necessary at some point to move the stone. We hope it won't be, but if it were, there is a concern that it possibly could be damaged, though we take every precaution not to damage. I also would like to say that I agree with Aaron that I think, the cemetery has a lot of unique things in it. Have you ever seen there's so many different things that are different. So I'm not against an innovative. It's not controversial in my book. It doesn't have the word hell on it, nor does it have a 6 foot long Rolls Royce. So at least it's not offensive to me. So I would like to move that we request these things and put it off for a month.
I'll second that.
Okay, so Paul Cook moves that we delay for a month to consider this, and Brian Davison seconds it. All in favor? Andrea?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Jerry?
Aye.
And Paul, aye. So it is moved, it is agreed, we're gonna wait for a month and reconsider. And Tish, thank you very much for taking this back to Ms. Canova and asking her.
I'll call the monument dealer tomorrow, and he'll be the one that has to do the drawing, I'm sure.
Okay.
So I'll let them know. The
Okay.
last one I brought to the committee was the birth of Venus, and we never had any flack about it, but I wasn't going to sign off on that one either.
I gathered the birth of Venus was not approved.
It was approved.
Where is the birth of Venus?
You haven't even seen it. It's very small. It's very
Okay.
small.
You'll have to
Yeah.
tell us where it is. We'd like to see that.
I can do that.
Art connoisseurs that we are.
Yes.
All right. Anything else on this? Okay, let's go to D6, update on the committee's priority projects.
All right. So the first up, I will go. I'll go in order, I guess, for right now. So mausoleum lots. So in the packet was a copy just past the Canava plan the Canava application as a plan, updated plan for the request of the committee at the last meeting to remove lots D and E, and so they show lots A, B, and C for a proposed mausoleum lots along the Maple Avenue of Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. So obviously there's been discussion at previous cemetery committee meetings about installation of lots, proposed lots, and it's been a committee priority for quite a while now. So this is a surveyed plan of where those proposed lots could go. And what we would, I think the process for it, if the committee wishes to do so, could vote to accept this plan with the 3 additional proposed lots next to the Pope lot and move forward with trying to set a rate hearing to establish rates for these 3 mausoleum lots.
Well, this is really good news. We're just there, and it's so satisfying because it's been a long time coming. And the hillside there has been surveyed, and it looks like there's room for 3 good-sized lots. And I know Aaron is ready to contact. We've already done some of this with other cemeteries, but just to confirm the prices. These are valuable plots, $200,000 to $300,000 a piece, which would be a sizable income for the cemetery. That would beef up our cemetery funds considerably. And that would be nice for all kinds of projects to improve the cemetery.
Paul, if you don't mind, I just want to share my screen here with everybody.
Please, Aaron, go ahead.
As well, and it shows the plan so that everyone can see what we're discussing. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So these are the, just to orient yourself here. North is this direction. Maple Avenue comes down. The Melvin Memorial is up this area. In this area here, there's a current Pope lot, and then proposed lots A, B, and C. These are existing lots. The previous plan that was shown to the committee and discussed showed 2 additional lots, lots D and lots E, here in this area behind the swale, behind the existing lots. And it was after discussion, the committee's discussion decided to remove those 2 lots. So we have these 3 proposed lots here.
Good. So once we have gotten a proposed cost for each of these mausoleum plots, we can have a rate hearing, and then once we've done that, I think we can put them up for sale. Is that correct?
Correct.
But should we have a formal approval by vote of the proposed 3 plots?
I would recommend. Yes.
Well, I would like to move that we approve lots A, B, and C for mausoleums for sale at Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. Was there anyone interested in seconding?
I second.
Paul Cook moves and Andrea Solomon seconds the motion. All in favor? Andrea?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Jerry?
Aye.
Paul? Aye. So it's unanimous. We've approved. Aaron, you've got the go-ahead to get some suggested prices for those three. Aaron, you mentioned to me that there was interest, maybe someone came to you, Tish, in a mausoleum in the new part of the cemetery.
Yes.
That's correct.
Tell us about that.
He asked a while ago. I remember we discussed it at a meeting a long time ago. But it didn't, that area of the cemetery didn't go very far as the discussion was concerned, but they've asked again. He's actually ill. His power of attorney called again today to make sure that we understand how very interested he is. He's interested in building one tomorrow if he could. More than likely, he will probably die before it's built. And it's his, if it gets approved, it's his plan to have his body held until it's done, because that's where he wants to be. In the new section. He has never had an interest in the older part of the cemetery.
Tell us where in the new section we've been talking about this, but remind us where in the new section you would put a few plots for mausoleums.
As you pull in the gate, there's the whole field on the left. I think right now, the most feasible place to put them is as you pull in right there on the left, for a couple of reasons. One, I wouldn't want to put them in the middle of that area just because we don't know what that area is going to look like someday. So it's better to stick with a corner. The back corner might not always be a corner because those woods are cemetery land and could be grave space someday. And in that front corner, honestly, it stays pretty snowy because it's so shaded. So it's a wetter area in the spring, so not optimal for digging. So doing something above ground is a better option. That's just my thoughts. That's it. That's all we have.
Well, we were thinking of putting a columbarium further along on the left side, down where the steps go.
Correct. Yep.
Which is more or less, not the middle, but even further back, slightly further back than the middle.
A little further, yeah. Yeah, in that area is already established. The stairs are already there. The walkway's already there.
I, for one, have no problem with setting aside 3 more plots for mausoleums in the new area. As to where they would be, we have Tish's recommendation, but it's a pretty large area. There are other parts that you could, there's also on the other side of the road coming into your right. Isn't that correct, Tish? There's some.
There are just inside the gate on the right along the tree line is where our indigent lot is. So there are 10 graves there, 5 or 6 occupied. They don't have headstones, so you can't see them, but I wouldn't necessarily want to put something in front of them.
Yes, right, right. Thoughts and questions, comments by members of the committee at this point?
Sorry, so just as I understand, when we were talking about Sleepy Hollow, the old part, we were talking about into the hill, but this is something that would, a structure that would sit on top of the ground as a mausoleum.
Yep. Yeah, freestanding building, basically, yeah.
Yeah, before we decided on a location or area, we would need to do a survey to determine, if the construction is even feasible in some of those locations, vertical construction. Just with setbacks, there is some wetlands and areas right along the cemetery right there, and we would need to comply with any local or state codes and regulations as it relates to construction. So.
There's also in the very back, if you go past Tish's office and keep on going, as though you're going back around in the very back of the cemetery where there's a tree line, but before the trees, is there land back there, Tish?
There is. There's that tree line on our original design for that area was all grave space into that tree line, all the way all the way basically to the treatment plant property.
Whoa.
Yeah,
So-
that's all cemetery woods right now. It could someday be grave space. I don't know.
Right along the tree line, without taking down any trees, are there any?
All the trees would come down. That was all
But
slated for grave
someday,
space.
but I mean, at
Yeah.
present, if we wanted to survey a spot besides the one you mentioned,
Correct.
is there open space along that area before you get to the tree line, but at the very back of the cemeteries?
Yes. Yeah, that whole field is open, basically.
So that's a second area that could be considered for mausoleum.
Anywhere in that field could be considered, yeah. There's just 2 spots that are marked out as historically significant Indian areas that long ago a committee agreed to not use, but they only measure about 15 by 15 feet.
And now
Other than that,
But now you're talking about on the left as you come in, but I'm talking about the very back before the trees. But, there's the road that curves around in the new area, and then there's the tree line. But between the road and the tree line, there aren't too many graves, are there?
there aren't any on that side of the road yet.
So I'm saying that could be also a place where there could be a few mausoleum plots as well as.
Yep.
So I'm quite interested in setting aside a few plots in one or both of those places, and I would like to ask Aaron to survey both for the possibility of say 3 more plots, or 2 in each or some number. But I'd like to hear what the rest of the cemetery committee thinks.
Well, when someone approaches you and wants to buy something, one of the best answers is, sure, how can we make that happen? So, looking at the top of the circle or the back end of the circle, Tish, would the tree line have to be pushed back at all to accommodate these kinds of structures?
No.
Okay.
Andrea?
I agree with Jerry. I think it's definitely worth looking into, and I think that would be a great place for mausoleums, especially now that we have an interested party. We should probably pursue that quickly.
Last time someone came to us about this, we beat around the bush, and I think they lost interest and went away.
Yeah.
But we didn't forget about it. And now we have these 3 plots we're about to approve. I'd hate to discourage this person at this point.
Yeah.
Brian, anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of questions there for sure, but something to pursue and take a look at it. I think it does in some ways change a little bit of what that cemetery looks like now, so we have to think carefully about it, but certainly open to it, especially if you can, increase the budget. That's always great too, so.
All right. So I would like to move that we ask our superintendent to conduct a survey in both those spots to see about the possibility of setting aside plots of similar dimensions to the ones that we've just approved in the new section, sometimes called the knoll, but the new section of the cemetery, and in those 2 areas in particular. Is there someone who'd like to second that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Andrea Solomon seconds. All in favor, say aye. Andrea?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Jerry?
Aye.
Paul? Aye. It's approved. So Aaron, do you think that might be possible to do by the time we meet next time?
I'll have to check with our engineering division and see what their availability is to do the survey. I mean, I think we have a month. I think we should be able to at least get a preliminary survey and look at that area by then. After the whole cemetery, and just focusing on those 2 areas, the southwest corner and the northern area, I think it should be feasible.
Great, great. And Tish, you can tell the party that's interested that we're on it.
Will do. They'll be excited to hear that.
Yeah.
One question I have for you, Paul, is as far as the rates and the rate hearing, how would you like to proceed?
I think we could probably proceed potentially, that's a good question, Aaron, because I would like to sell, if we could, plots in both areas, though it's a little soon to do that. We haven't, but if we were to do it, I would, I think we might charge a different rate for the old section than the new. I think that seems to me to be the general feeling. Even right now, Tish, just regular gray spots in the new are less expensive than in the old.
Correct.
And I think we should probably continue on that basis. And the ones mausoleums in the old area should be more dear, to use an old English word, more valuable, more expensive than the ones in the new area. Anyone else have comments on this? Go ahead, Susan.
I just have a question. When you sell, is the cemetery responsible for building the structure? And therefore there's a cost associated with that? Or does the whoever buys the plot design and build the structure with the approval of the, of the cemetery committee? So the cost is theirs not only for the land, but for the building. That was just.
Yeah, it's the latter. You were right, Susan. It's the latter. In fact, I just sent to Aaron about a week ago my last update on specs, rules and regs for the cemetery mausoleums. Maybe, and Aaron's going to have a look at those, and then Aaron, maybe in our next packet, we could send that out to everybody to have a look at.
Will do.
Yeah, so,
The lot owner, whoever purchased the lot, would be responsible for all costs related to engineering, design, and construction. And then they would have to meet the specifications listed in the document that Paul referenced that the committee will adopt once it's finalized.
yeah.
So what would you like to, as far as a rate hearing goes, would you like to try to schedule a tentative rate hearing for a future meeting, Paul, or do you want to investigate some rates first, or how would you like to do that? We could, the staff could investigate and look at rates and bring some proposed rates to the committee for review and discussion, and then a subsequent rate hearing.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yeah, I think so, Aaron. So that we talk about a little bit more, and then maybe in November. So in October, we could talk about what you come up with. And then everybody can say what they think. And then I think perhaps we could try to shoot for, at the very latest, December, but maybe for November.
okay.
How does that sound to everybody?
Great.
Okay. So yes, let's next time we'll really set aside some time to talk about rates based on what you've come up with, and perhaps even tentative rates for whatever we might do in the new cemetery. And then once we've all agreed on that, maybe in November we could have the rate hearing. Or if we're still having problems, maybe we'll have to put it off to December. But hopefully we'll get it done before the year ends.
Okay. Sounds good. And then at the October meeting, would you also like to have a discussion regarding the rules and regulations of the mausoleum specifications?
Yeah, that would be great. If everybody got a copy, it's not too long. It's a little technical in spots, but if everybody had a copy before the meeting, then we could just sort of kick it around and see if there are any, how we'd like to tweak it.
Okay.
But we look to you mostly. This is mostly your bailiwick, you know?
Okay. So I will do that. And then, I mean, would you potentially want to prepare it to a point that it's ready to provide it to the committee in advance and ready to vote on for October meeting, or a discussion during October and vote on during November?
What do you think?
I mean, we've done a couple of drafts and read through, and I think it's a pretty solid document. I could probably have it ready in a couple of weeks, and if the committee needs a couple of weeks to review, and then I can have it. I can put an agenda item on the the October meeting, and then if the committee can decide at that point whether somebody would like to move forward make a motion, or to discuss it further and kick it to the next month.
That sounds good. So if everybody got it a couple of weeks before the meeting, then they could read it, and then we could talk about it. And if everybody thinks it's good, it's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do that, Aaron.
Okay.
Are we done with mausoleums for the time being?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's go on to record scanning.
So the record scanning project, we don't have too many updates on that, to be honest. That's kind of taken a back burner with the whole COVID situation. And so we had a meeting tentatively scheduled with the town archivist today that got canceled a little bit earlier and postponed to tomorrow. So we will have that discussion with him and get us back on target here to bring a vendor in. I did have some discussions with him last week, and it sounds like, just to refresh, we discussed it before, bringing in a third-party vendor to come in and scan all the documents and law cards that we have electronically in the books in the cemetery supervisor's office, so that we have digitized records of those, so they are searchable electronically. And then I think one of the end products would be to make almost like a GIS type of interactive database, so that residents or the public could search, the appropriate records and that are available, that we make available to those folks, and they could see in our GIS platform, where lots are located and look up information. There's other third-party databases that have are just cemetery-related GIS kind of databases that other surrounding communities use, and those are searchable. So if somebody wanted to come in and search for a specific lot or grave and pull the card and get some information, they can do that. And I think that's so it's twofold. It's for the department and staff to be able to look up records and historical information that we might need for our operation. It's also for the public as an interactive piece for the public to come in and to look up any information they might be researching, or to come visit the cemetery and visit somebody of interest that they're looking for. So, the idea, I think, that we could probably have that done in the next, and have it moving forward, at least in the next couple of months. There's, after town meeting, there will be capital funding available again for us to do the work. So that is great. And then, we have hopefully the staffing resources and availability now to kind of work on that moving forward, and engage somebody to come in, professional, to assist us.
What we talked about, this might be somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000, the cost of this project.
Yeah, that's a rough estimate after talking to the town archivist.
Right.
We'll have a better idea once we bring somebody in and they actually look at, how much documents we have and what it will require. I think a lot of the documents we won't want to leave the property, so they've kept to come up and set up probably in the garage space next to the supervisor office and scan documents in, which isn't uncommon. They do that in other municipalities too.
So we just have to actually go now to the actual finding of some vendor, or ask several vendors to submit bids.
Correct. We would write up a scope of work and solicit quotes. And there are some pre-selected we call a state bidding list, state vendors available on the website, the state's website, that could potentially provide some service for them. So we would solicit some of those folks, as well as any other qualified people we thought, or firms that we thought could do the job.
So when will we be able to move on that?
I would hope to have an update for the committee by next month's meeting.
And but not yet, a vendor will not yet have been signed up by then.
I doubt by then. We'd probably have like some quotes possibly solicited and know kind of dollar value where we're at, what the size of the contract would be, and then usually the procurement process takes a little bit longer than that.
Okay. Comments or questions of Aaron on the record scan? Okay, thank you, Aaron. Let's go on, Aaron, to the last thing, which is, I think, the very encouraging news on the headstone project.
Yes, we've made a lot of progress on that. It's actually completed. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Eric Shaw to give an introduction about the project and an overview of the vendor that we use. Eric, I'm going to share my screen. I have host rights, so I will share my screen and kind of scroll through a report and some photos, and Eric can kind of speak to the photos and speak to a little bit of background to the vendor as we go along here. But I'll introduce Eric Shaw. He's the Assistant Highway and Ground Superintendent, and him and Tish together, head up this project and got this thing successfully completed. So.
Okay.
So as you all know, we've been trying to get these headstones or a series of headstones repaired in the cemetery for some years now. So I was handed a list back in February of about 33 stones that had been previously targeted for repair, restoration, or resetting. I believe that list was handed out to vendors or contractors in the past for pricing. Given our budget of about $10,000 for this project, we realized we were going to have to kind of whittle that list down. So we pulled out the 5 most costly stone repairs that had been quoted by different vendors to get that list down to 28. We then drew up a scope of work to accompany that list of 28 identified stones and solicited quotes from 3 vendors, given all that information. We had one responsive bidder come back by the name of Tamara Condi. Her company was Historic Gravestone Services. So we awarded that work for this project to her back in April. Work began in May, as early as we could get out there given the weather. She was actually very flexible getting started with that. It was helpful. She was able to bring some materials home to work on and do some of the work in her garage and bring them back out and put them in the cemetery. As it warmed up, she was able to kind of get through 4 or 5 stones per week on average. We had set a target date for completion for this project for the 30th of June. And giving a couple weather hiccups, we ended up finishing, I think it was the week of July 6th, so not too far off target. General scope of work for much of what was done to kind of make sure we could get all 28 within budget or at least close to it. We sort of targeted the stones that were sort of only needing a few fracture repairs, cleaning, and resetting and things like that. Like I said, some of the more costly stones that we picked out from the original list were more extensive in terms of the needs for repair and restoration. So that's kind of how we got through this project and kind of met our timeline and got our first phase of these stone repairs done. Kind of within the expected time frame that we had targeted. So as we kind of mentioned earlier, we have already generated a list of another, I believe 30 or so stones for the second phase that we're looking to, possibly execute this fall, but definitely, if not this fall, going into the spring of 21.
Great.
So, so Tamara did provide us with a pretty comprehensive report. I have already uploaded, Anna uploaded the report for us today to the cemetery website. So for those of you folks who would be interested in going and looking at that, I'm going to share my screen or I don't know if there's any questions for Eric, but or if you want to share the screen and I can kind of scroll through quickly the report and show some photographs of the stones if you'd like.
Yeah, that'd be great to see.
Okay. Can you see the report?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the cover page of the report. And then it goes down to basically there's one page that looks like this for every stone. It talks about the record date, the dates on the stone, the materials of the stone, stone condition, what the treatments were for each stone, whether it was cleaned, it was reset, if it was repaired, the material that was used to repair the stone, and then the inscription on the stone at the bottom. And then the next second page is the stone before and then after restoration.
Whoa.
And some of these are very kind of dramatic differences here. I will kind of scroll through these a little quickly and focus mainly, since the text is so small, focus mainly on the photographs. And again, the report is available on the town website on the cemetery page to be downloaded by anybody who's interested. So this is one you can see was broken kind of in the ground, the stop section, brought back up, repaired.
Great. Great.
On the ground, it stood back up.
This is good.
Stone that was in the garage, brought back up.
Excellent.
It's pretty remarkable what she
Really?
did.
This is
Good
so
job.
great. Great
Yeah.
stuff. Wow.
So it kind of fractured right here. You can see the line here was this fracture line. Another one that was in the shop brought back out. Again, so it was nice. You're able to kind of restore the stone back into place and also clean the stone.
This is just what we've been wanting to see. This is so great. Hats off to you for identifying these stones, Tish, and Eric for overseeing getting this done. This is really super.
It's a great one. You can see barely legible and now very clear. So.
Wow.
Again,
You're right, Aaron. It is very dramatic.
this is a great one, I think. Like,
Wow.
look at this one. This was like embedded in the. You can see the grass growing through, and now standing up.
Wow.
Yeah.
She did a great job. Wow.
Yeah, this is a great one. This is one of my
Wow.
the best ones you see. Just how long it's been there, right?
Yeah.
Brought back up.
Wow. Wow. Wonderful. Yes, it was a great embarrassment to the cemetery to see all these stones broken, and having them fixed this way is just great. And cleaned up so nicely too. Wow. Hmm. Oh, that's great. That must have been hard to do to get that thing back to level. Wow.
And then it just kind of goes into kind of some of the methods and treatment that you used in the resetting and cleaning, and then some photos of kind of step by step how it's done.
This is such a professional job, and the report is beautiful. It's a beautiful job. Really, very impressive. We found the right person, I think, to do that work. It's really super. So can we hire them again? Or is she ready to, how is that going to work?
So we will resolicit quotes for the second round.
Yeah. Well, she did a wonderful job.
Absolutely.
And thank you, Tish and Eric, for what you did to make sure, help her make it happen.
Welcome.
Yeah,
Anyone have any comments? Yeah.
we were kind of nervous with the whole COVID restrictions, and luckily Eric and Tish were able to work together to find a way to make it so we complied with our workplace safety regulations and get it done safely and still move it forward. So that's hats off to both of them for
Really
safety and making sure this gets squared away. So.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That is so wonderful. It was actually discouraging to walk to the cemetery and see all those broken stones and those fallen stones, and to see now almost 30 of them re-erected and set up and leveled. That's really quite an accomplishment. Hats off to you guys. It's a really, I'm really very pleased to see all that. Wonderful. So you think we can start again and maybe not, Eric mentioned maybe the fall. What do you think, Aaron? Is
Yeah,
that
I don't see why we couldn't at least start getting some quotes. We want to make sure that we have money available after town meeting. I mean, that's 2 weeks away. You know, we have the process down now, let's say, right? So we've been through it once. We know who some vendors are that we'll reach out to and hopefully get a contract going. And, you know, I think a big piece of this work is weather dependent. So, you know, if we were able to start some work and somebody in a contract, work as far as we can into the fall and then just continue on. And now that we know a little bit more about the cost of the stones and what the price range is going to be, we can adjust accordingly and, you know, maybe make it a little bit larger of a project if we're able to. So
now, if someone has done if we can all agree that someone has done a very good job, do you have to resolicit bids or can you rehire them?
I do. I have to re-solicit the bids
I
the way
see.
that was advertised.
All right.
Due to our state procurement laws, we have to follow on our town procurement policies. So we need to comply with those.
All right. So will you be able to ask for bids now as soon as possible?
So we have the additional stones identified, put together another scope of work, and then resolicit price quotations for it.
When will you be able to put together another scope of work for another set of stones?
I would say probably within the next, depending on other priorities and what's going on, you know, within the next month.
Wow.
Something kind of written up. We have a template essentially. We put in the new photos and get some quotes out there and engage those vendors for some pricing. So.
Do we need to authorize you as a committee to make a vote, or we're good to go?
No, you do not. No.
Okay, great. Well, anyone have any other comments from any other members of the committee regarding the headstone project?
Paul, yes, Paul, if I could, please. I just want to say that, you know, in looking in just seeing those before and after pictures, I couldn't help but think of how I would feel if any of those stones were for someone that I knew, for a loved one. And I was just very moved by how respectful the work was done and what the finished work actually signifies. It's not just, you know, putting together some broken pieces of something. It really is more than that. And that's all. Just really good work.
Should we write her a letter telling her how much we appreciate it?
That would be a nice gesture.
Jerry, would you like to draft it?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
And we could show it to us at the next meeting and we could sign it.
Okay.
And you can get the information, the specifics, or name and address and all that from Tish? Tish,
Yes,
is
we have that. We can provide that.
okay. Yeah, let's let her know that her work is appreciated. Anybody else, thoughts, comments?
Just echo what a great job that Paul and Jerry have said. But you talked about a second phase. I was just curious, like, you know, how many phases do you guys look forward to getting like all the stones repaired? Or do you think like within this next round, or is there still so many that, you know, there's going to be 3 rounds or any idea?
So I would say it's phase 1 for this team, right? We're, you know, some newer members to the organization here, relatively speaking, and it's the first time that we as a group, you know, it's a collective group of Eric, Tish, and myself work together on a restoration project. So I'd say it's first of many. And I would say that, you know, headstone restoration and headstone cleaning is like, it goes on perpetually, right? These stones are hundreds of years old. There's hundreds of thousands of stones. We could go on and clean stones for as long as we're here. You know, if you put them on some type of a regular, kind of call it a preventative maintenance cleaning, right, program, it could go on for a long time. I would say that, you know, I think we're going to tackle the priority stones of the ones that are like in disrepair, right, and the ones that are maybe, you know, Tish already has a list. We have a list and some photos of locations. of the next list of Tish's priority stones. You know, I would say nobody knows the stones in the cemetery better than Tish does. But I think every year we should include in the budget some type of headstone restoration, because that's what we, you know, the cemetery is, its headstones is a big part of the cemetery, and making sure that they, you know, like Jerry said, it's more than just a piece of granite, it's more than just a stone, and making sure that we're maintaining those is very important. So I would say it's a program that continues on annually. For as long as the cemetery is open, they should be doing some type of a clean annually. Yeah.
Terrific, terrific. Well, looks great. Looks great.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Anyone else? Comments? All right. No, we have three more things. The tree labeling project that our friends at the Friends of Sleepy Hollow have been working on. Aaron, you want to say something about that?
Yeah, I was just going to grab the labels from the other side of my office.
Oh, okay, great. Go ahead. Yeah, sure. I've been in touch, I think, and so has Andrea a little bit, and Aaron, with our friend Kevin Plodzik, the president of the Friends of Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. And, you know, there's been an ongoing project to label, 26 trees? 26 different, I think that's the number, indigenous trees in the cemetery. And so the Friends have undertaken to do that, and they've come up with these lovely labels. And Aaron is going to install them in September, hopefully. And so we just wanted to give you a look at it, and then probably in October we'll write them a thank you letter for having done this.
Nice.
So that will be attached. Aaron, tell us how that's going to work.
These signs will be attached to the trees. They provided me with some stainless steel screws and looks like some springs as well. So I'll give a quick demonstration here. I'm gonna get the bag open.
We remember we've been around the block about how to have these trees labeled, right? We had all these different ideas, and finally we came up with the solution.
So it looks like they provide us with a self-tapping stainless steel screw, about 2.5 inches. And then, so there'll be a spring inserted over the screw on top of the sign, so that allows as the tree grows, it compresses the screw down, so that the tree doesn't grow around the sign. It pushes the sign out from the bark of the tree.
Very clever. Yeah.
So that was the agreed upon attachment method.
Yeah. And of course, there was the old high school tree identification project, which this has just made much easier, but I think they quit doing that. But boy, would this be helpful 10 and 20 years ago when all those kids were all walking around the cemetery trying to find what was a black cherry tree. Now we've got a cheat sheet.
Yeah, it could be a good nature-based activity for those folks learning at home this fall semester. You never know.
Yes, there you go. There you go.
So,
thank you, Aaron.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Now, committee comments relative to issues contained in this agenda or feedback from residents since our last meeting. Any committee comments? All right, now it's time for public comments, and we have two members of the public, apart from our liaison with Susan, visiting us today. Do either of you have anything you would like to bring up or share with us? I think you're muted, Lydia, and so is Richard.
No, I'm all set. Thank you, Paul.
Well, Lydia, thank you for joining us. It's good to see you.
It's always a pleasure.
I hope we kept you interested and not bored over the past hour and a half.
No, it was wonderful to see all the work with the cemetery stones and the trees. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, wonderful. Great. Richard, have you got anything you want to say to us? All right. Well, I want to thank Susan, please.
Yeah. Hi, yes, I just wanted to give my pitch for town meeting, which is going to be on Sunday, September 13th, 1 p.m. at the Doug White Fields at the high school, which are the soccer fields, not the football field. It's going to be a very different kind of meeting this year because of the COVID restrictions. And I would urge anyone on the committee or anyone listening to check the town meeting website, because there won't be formal presentations. It's not going to be the video presentations. And so to the extent that you can do some homework on the articles, the hearing presentations are already online. But the other part of it is the consent calendar is greatly expanded from what it normally is. And all the articles on there were recommended affirmative action by both the Finance Committee, if appropriate, and the Select Board. So they're trying to find the balance between informing and allowing robust debate and condensing what is normally a 3 to 4 day meeting into one half a day. So it'll be challenging, but please do some homework, bring your bug spray and your water and your sunscreen. We look forward to seeing you then. Thanks.
Thank you, Susan. And thank you for spending the past hour and a half with us. We appreciate it a lot.
I
Ed,
enjoyed this very much. Thank you.
Great, great. Well, I think we have a sum up now. So what we're going to do, we're going to have next time we will discuss budget issues, and by then Brian will have sent some questions if he has some, or anyone else, to Aaron regarding the budget point. We are also going to have a vote, if possible, at least a discussion on the rules and regulations for mausoleums, and probably in mid-September sometime, Aaron will mail that out to everyone, so you'll have plenty of time to review it. Then we're also going to have an update on the scope of work for scanning the documents. And we'll get a little bit of an update. We'll talk about the surveys, or at least a preliminary survey of the new area of the cemetery for the possibility of establishing several more mausoleum plots there. And in particular, considering the gentleman that has been talking to Tish about a possible buying a mausoleum plot there. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit, if I'm not repeating myself, on the progress on perhaps getting a bids out for the second phase of our headstone restoration project, the next group, with hopes that maybe it can get started again even before the snow falls. So anything else that I leave off, or?
Were you looking for priorities for 2021?
Oh yes, absolutely. Thank you, Brian. We're going to talk, this is a major thing. Please look at your master plan and spend some time thinking, what can we talk about regarding major pushes for 2021, considering the limitations, the circumstances that we find ourselves in. I'm not sure we'll be wholly lifted when 2021 comes around. But what we can do is talk about what sort of things we'd like to see happen in 2021 for the cemetery. And do look at the master plan, because you get some notion about what sort of concerns that Andrea and Whitney came up with when they did the master plan renewal a couple of years ago. And we all spent a lot of time on that. And that was a very useful exercise. Okay, I think I've covered. Anything else on for next time?
Paul, I will have a draft letter of appreciation for the contractor who did the work on the stones.
Okay. Jerry, draft. Oh. Well, it looks like we're going to have a full agenda, Aaron, for next time. Thank you again, Jerry, for being willing to write that letter. All right, well then I think I will move that we adjourn. Would someone like to second? All right, Jerry seconds, and so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Brian, Andrea, Jerry, and Paul, we all agree? Eric, thank you for, it's past, we adjourned. Eric, it was good seeing you. Eric's gone already. Oh, there you are, Eric. Eric, it's good to have you with us. Hope to see you
Thank you.
again. Anna, thank you very much for helping us.
You're welcome.
Susan, hope to see you again. I wish you all the best at the town meeting. All right, everyone. Hasta
Take care.
luego, as they say down here.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Deirdre, I'll call you.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Take care.